Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So here's another deck profile update for you guys today. Sorry this is a day late. I actually had to reconstruct my deck almost entirely just because with the ban list going into effect next Monday, I had to really think about like what's going to be the current meta. Well, Cashier obviously is going to be one of the best, if not probably the best deck to deal with. And now luckily enough, Tier Limits it got butchered. Like they really got power crept. I mean, the deck is still playable, but I don't think it's going to be as oppressive as it was before, and thank God it's not. Now, for those who watch my Crystal Beast deck, I'm pretty sure that deck profile is still going to be pretty viable, even though Tier is no longer going to be like the main threat. I mean, you can still do a lot of things with that deck. So now I had to think about what can I do with this deck to help me deal with Cashier and a lot of whatever else is in the meta. I know Sword Soul is probably going to be seeing some attention. Flunderies, even though they lost the barrier statue, is still very much playable. Let's see what else is there, and of course there's also the mirror match to consider. So yeah, I kind of like dabbled a bit, trying to test out like different things, and I think I finally found the build that I wanted to go with. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share with you guys for today, and yeah, let's get started. So the main deck is actually 45 cards, because last time was like 44, but I mean it's only one card difference. But anyway, starting off with 3 copies of Aliber. No need to explain what this guy does. He's your main starter, so yeah, definitely got to run this at 3. I still stick to 2 Tragedy just because, you know, it can be a little bit bricky. So yeah, like you don't really and not to mention the Despia package is pretty small, so that's why I don't feel like 3 is necessary, but 2 should be more than enough. It goes really well with branded openings, so yeah. Moving on, 1 Dramaturge. Still like to run this guy at 1 at least, because, you know, if it's used as fusion material, he comes right back. Plus he's also a negation, so I figured why not. And of course the 1 Ad Libitum, and that pretty much rounds out our Despian package. So yeah. All right, for the Albaz package, I've run 2 copies of Fallen of Albaz still. I actually managed to get my hands on a second Ultimate Rare, so I'm really happy to have that. 1 Blazing Cartesia. This card's just so good, and it gets even better with the new tech card I threw in here. So you'll see that in just a moment. But what I like about Blazing Cartesia is that not only does she have polymerization on legs, but now she has a fusion monster that's actually really good, which again we'll get to momentarily. But yeah, Blazing Cartesia is just such a house of a card in this deck. It just does so much work for you. I've decided to bump my Tri-Brigade Mercurial to 2 copies simply because not only is it a good negation, but again, this goes in tandem with one of our fusion monsters because we now have a new Albaz fusion monster, and if it requires a winged beast, and thank God Tri-Brigade Mercurial is a winged beast monster, so it also helps that the fact that we can actually recycle these out. So like it's almost like we never really run out of that, and plus it's another hand trap to add into the mix. And of course, 1 copy of Albion does count as Fallen of Albaz while it's in the field or in the grave. And not to mention, it just helps pitch out our branded spells and traps to the grave and gives us an Upstart Goblin-based effect. So yeah, why not? I am running Bystials in my build, and I know some people are kind of like debating if Bystials are even that good this form because of Kashtira, but honestly, I think Bystials are still really strong right now, especially because even if you go first, you can banish your own monsters, especially like Mercurial, for example, and still get some value off of it. So, but for my engine, I run 2 copies of the Bystial Abelian. I know some people like to run this at 3. I think 2 is just fine, honestly. You don't really want to go too much into it. And plus, I think the best of the Bystial engine is still going to be Magnum. I decided to bump him up to 3. And the only reason I did this is because there's a new Bystial monster that is in my deck, but moving on before that, 1 copy of Druid Worm. And of course, the new edition, 1 Bystial Baldrake. So what this card does, for those who don't know what it is, if your opponent special summons a Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, Exceeds, or a Link monster except during damage step, you can tribute 1 other light or dark monster, then target 1 of those special summoned monsters, banish it. So that's actually pretty good for removal. And this plus Druid Swarm, you basically get to remove 2 monsters off the field. So yeah, these 2 in tandem is like literally 2 disruptions in 1 card. So that's pretty nuts. And of course, to round out our Bystial engine, 1 copy of Soraneer. I may bump Magnum up to 2 copies and bump Baldrake to 2 as well. But again, I kind of like this piece. This is working for me just fine. And yeah, I like it. And just to go and get these out of the way, I'm running 2 copies of Edge Imp Chains since I am still running the Frightfur package. So yeah, why not? All right, moving on to spells already. We're running 3 copies of Branded Fusion, literally the best spell in the entire deck. And honestly, with the tech card that I am running, it's actually much easier to resolve this a lot more often without the worry of Ash Blossom, because I feel like Cantras may become more viable in the upcoming format. So But yeah, I just want to make sure like I can go full combo without the worry of getting disrupted. 3 copies of opening, you know, don't need to explain this. Still sticking to my guns with 3 copies of Super Poly. Super Poly is just such a good card right now. 2 copies of Frightful Patchwork, naturally, to go with our chains. And of course, 2 copies of Polymerization. Now, for the tech card, I hope you guys are ready for this. I'm actually running 2 copies of Fusion Deployment. Yeah, I know, right? So this is what you do with this card. You play Fusion Deployment, reveal 1 fusion monster, and then you special summon 1 fusion material that is listed on that card. So, and I'm only going to just throw this out as a spoiler. So with this card, I generally like to reveal this card, special summon out Cartesia, and then from there, Cartesia, you know, you can actually go into this right away and then just set up for later disruption, which I'll get into more into what this card does later on. But yeah, it's pretty nuts. And what's also great about Fusion Deployment is that, yeah, it does lock you into fusions, but let's be honest, the whole deck is fusion, so it's not even gonna be that important of a restriction whatsoever. But also, I like the fact that it baits out Ash Blossom, and if your opponent ashes this card, just play Branded Fusion, you're all set to go, and you can still land on the same board. So yeah, Fusion Deployment is such a house of a card. I really love it. All right, so moving on to the one-ofs. Still playing 1 copy of Branded Lost, you know, obviously, so that way you can perform your fusion summons without any worry. 1 Branded Regain. It's literally an upstart goblin as long as a light or dark monster is banished, and it also recycles your banished light and dark monster, so that's pretty good. Decided to add in Branded in White. I've actually seen some builds start running this now. I guess because the fact that now, like with the new fusion monsters that we got, we're open to more options, and now we can effectively end on multiple disruptors aside from Mirror Jade. So I think it's definitely not too bad, you know. And of course, 1 Branded in Red. And I'm still running 1 copy of Foolish Burial. I decided to play this over the Despia Field Spill, only because I feel like this card is just better. But I mean, I could be wrong, you know, because like at times you can potentially open Dead, whereas at least this card lets me add what I need. So yeah, I figured this was just fine. And for the only traps I'm running, 1 Beast and 1 Retribution. Retribution is mostly just so I can recycle my branded spells and traps, but the effect to negate does come up since it is a counter trap. But yeah, like I'm mostly just use it for the graveyard effect. So yeah, and Branded Beast, you know, it's specifically for Bystials, but at least it just helps you, you know, get rid of monsters on the field. All right, so moving on to the extra deck. It's pretty self-explanatory. For the main ones, of course, I'm still running 2 ofs. 2 Mirror Jade, because, you know, Cash like to banish from your extra deck, so it's good to, you know, at least double up on your most key fusion monsters. 2 Albion, 2 Libellion, you know, these are like the prime ones. The new Grangunal, I'm pretty sure I'm not pronouncing that right, but the Dusk Dragon. I think in the OCG it's called the Finale Dragon. But requires Blazing Cartesia, the Virtuous, and 1 light or dark monster, so you can literally use anything you want. If this card is Fusion Summon, you can send 1 level 6 or higher light or dark monster from your deck or extra deck to the graveyard, so that's pretty nuts. If a monster is special summoned from your opponent's activated effect, you can banish this card from your field or your grave, special summon 1 Dogmatic monster from your deck, or 1 Despia monster from your extra deck. So this gets you into access to Quiritis. That's going to be your prime target. You could also run Prishkinian if you wanted to, but honestly, Quiritis is probably going to be the better pick of the 2 because it at least has a floating effect. But yeah, this card, the fact that it can trigger from either field or grave, it's pretty nuts. So yeah, and it's just like a good way to counter the your opponent's Bystials if they're running them too. Next, 1 Rinbrum, the Striking Dragon. I don't remember what it was called in the OCG, but it requires a Fallen of Albaz plus 1 Beast Warrior, or Wing Beast monster, in which case Mercurier. And this is one of the best forms of disruption we have, aside from Mirror Jade, as I was talking about earlier. When a fusion synchro exceeds or a link monster effect is activated, quick effect, you can negate that effect, and if you do, return 1 monster on the field to the hand. Which, in this case, sometimes I end on boards with Alibur still out, but at least if I can bounce him back, I have follow for next turn. So yeah, it's pretty good. And it also has another effect. During your opponent's turn, while this card is in your graveyard, quick effect, you can target 1 Fallen of Albaz in your graveyard, special summon either that monster or this card, and banish the other. So it's a good way just to bring itself back. And plus, losing a Fallen of Albaz isn't the worst thing because you can always recycle it with Libellion. So that's the whole reason behind it. But yeah, this card is actually pretty good. And of course, moving on here, still running I actually decided to bump Masquerade to just 1 because, again, we have to open the window for more other fusion monsters, and I think Masquerade to just one is just fine, honestly. And it's just a good way to help you win by time. One Despia and Quaritus, as I mentioned earlier. I decided to bring back Brigand because not only is it huge, you know, like, but it's super easy to make with Super Poly. One Fallen Valbes plus one level 8 or higher monster, which against certain decks that is actually very possible. But I mostly just use it for the fact that it's free fodder for your Mirror Jade. Because its end phase effect states that you can either add a Fallen of Valbes or one Tri-Breeding monster, so it's another good way to get back your Mercurial just so you can have added disruption. So that's the whole reason behind it. Still one Titanic Clay because, you know, some of the Kashtira monsters are also huge, so it would just require Fallen of Valbes plus one monster with 2,500 attack or more, in which case a Rise Heart, you know, you definitely want to get that off the field as quickly as possible. And of course, I am still running Guardian Chimera because, you know, we are running the Fight for Patchwork card. One Starving Venom, and of course, one Dragus Despia. I had to cut Garura just because, like, it felt like there were times it just never came up, so, and out of the two main Super Poly targets, these are the two that come up the most. So, yeah, that's just my reason behind it. Alright, so for my side deck, it's pretty self-explanatory. Running 3 copies of Nibiru. This literally kills Kashtira. But again, it has to be dependent if I actually am up against the Kashtira lineup, because not everyone's gonna be playing. There's gonna be several other decks, so that's the whole reason behind it. 3 Triple T, just because, you know, figured signing these out was just fine. 2 Swords of Concealing, again going back to Cash, but it's also generically good against other decks because, like, Thunderies, you know, they still have their monster that negates the attack position monsters, and I just want to just like play this out and then just flip them all face down. Against the mirror match is also pretty good because unfortunately they only respond to monster effects. So yeah, that's the whole thing about it. So figured it was just a pretty flexible card. I know you might be wondering why not run Book of Eclipse. Well, the thing about Book of Eclipse is that it can actually be hit with an Ash Blossom. So I figured between the two, this one was just the safer bet. So, but again, that's just my opinion. I'm running Twin Twisters and Harpy's Feather Duster only because there's some potential with Labyrinths right now. So I just kind of want to be prepared for that. A great blowout card, 3 copies of Evenly Matched, and the only other card I'm running on the side is Branded Banishment, only because it is kind of awkward right now, and again, depends on the matchup, it can be a bit of a dead card at times, so that's the whole reason behind it. But yeah, I mean, as long as you have it on the side, you should be fine. But overall, that's all I got. Well, anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will catch you guys again next time.